In the studio, I have a lady who's appeared numerous times on Oprah, The Today Show, and CNN. She's written lots of books about relationships. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's a certified love educator. I like that. Her name is Dr. Pat Love. Hello, Dr. Love.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
I love the name, by the way.
It's my real name.
No way!
I was born with the name.
Dr. Pat. So your entire family, your surname is Love.
Yes, my father's name.
Wow,
Yes.
must be lots of love going around in the family
Lots
as well.
of love, yes.
So was it because you have a surname Love that you decided to embark on this profession or journey?
I don't think so. You know how when you grow up with your name, it's just your name? I never thought about it. But I think that the way I got into this profession is, one was just luck, divine intervention.
Right.
Someone said to me, you'd be good at this. Right place, right time.
And when was this? When you were a kid?
Oh,
or?
no. This was like when my children were, I have two children, when they were just gotten in school, and I was a homemaker and I had time on my hands, and I was looking for something to do. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Wow.
And my husband and I went to a marriage enrichment, and the leader said, I think you two would be good at this. It's almost like if somebody would have told me, you'd be a good car mechanic, I might have gone and done it. But also it just helped. It's really an interest of mine because it's very, very multifaceted. And so I'm a lifelong learner, and so it has so much to learn. And now now that we have better measurement devices and looking at the genetic structure of the human being and how the brain works, all this research is coming out. And so that's basically what I do is I read research, learn new facts, and I love learning and help people apply it to make their lives better.
That must be a great feeling to sort of help people
It really
along.
is. I have to say, Yasmin, I'm grateful just about every day for having some work that's meaningful, because I really, really like my work.
And that's rare, actually, because not everybody sort of likes their work. It's sort of
really
more like
true.
a humdrum most of the time.
I know. And people say, you're going to retire. And I think, retire
No.
from what?
Of course not.
It's a pleasure. It really is a calling, and I enjoy it.
So you didn't really start this until much later on? 'Cause
Much
you say
later.
you're a
I was
homemaker.
I was a returning student. I was a full-time homemaker. My very first job was college professor after being a homemaker.
Wow.
So I went from being a homemaker, full-time homemaker,
Right.
to a college professor.
That is
I was a
two
college,
extremes.
Yeah, I was a college dropout. And so, I dropped out of college, got married, had two kids. And when the two kids got in school, that's when, in fact, I tell the story that I was sweeping the garage for the second time in the same week. And that
When you
meant
got bored.
everything else was, I was bored. I didn't have enough of a job.
Because your kids have left
And they were in
the
school.
nest.
Yes. And so that's when I went back to school and got an
Wow.
associate, then a bachelor's, then a master's,
Wow.
then a doctorate.
That's very inspiring. So for everyone
Yes.
out there, honestly, if you think, I'm too old to start learning,
Trust me, you're not.
Dr. Pat Love is
Exactly.
a fine example.
And I think that's why I'm still very excited about my profession, is that I did start it later, and so it's still very new to me.
And not only that, because you started it later, I suppose maybe you had a decision and a choice in what you wanted to do as
Yes.
opposed to
Oh.
being sort of forced by your parents what you what you
Yes.
should do.
I was a much better student when I went back.
All right. So Dr. Pat Love's in the studio, and she's going to give us some tips. Yes, on marriage, on relationship, on love. It is Yaz
stay
here
tuned.
with you. And yes, I am not alone in the studio. With me, I have certified love educator. I love that phrase. Dr. Pat Love.
I'm glad to be here.
We're so glad that you could come in and share with us some tips on love and relationship. So I'm thinking maybe we want to kickstart. I think this is the perennial question that everyone wants to know. What do men want in a relationship, and what do women want in a relationship?
Yes. Well, we all want to be valued, seen, heard, and have someone interested in us. And in fact, the bottom line in relationships is interest and energy.
Interest. Okay,
Yes.
interest I can
In fact,
understand.
80% of couples who divorce or separate say, we grew apart. That's what they say. I love you, but I'm not in love with you.
Oh, yeah. I hate that
Number
phrase.
one cause of growing apart is withdrawal of interest and energy. Meaning, because what draws us together is someone interested in you,
That's
someone
right.
who has energy for you, someone who's curious about you.
Right.
And when that goes away, it's like the the life support system is taken from the relationship.
Okay.
And so when you quit being interested, when you quit being curious, when you quit paying attention, in the beginning of a relationship, you're very
It's
interested.
always fireworks
yes,
and everything.
exactly, exactly. In fact, I'm not going to do it justice, but there's a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh that goes something like this. When you look at me and believe you already know everything about me, it is a killing of me and our relationship.
Ah, I see. But it is quite a common thing to sort of feel, especially after you've been in a relationship for 10, 20 years, to sort of feel that you do know everything about the person.
Right. And there's actually a comfort in that. Here's the difficulty with relationships today. We want two conflicting things from relationships. We want security. We want trust. We want honesty. We want to build a future together and have history together. Yes, faithfulness. But we also want excitement and spontaneity.
Right.
And we want adventure and we want energy.
Human beings are so difficult.
Yes. And these are two different opposing experiences. So the key is you have to keep some novelty, some freshness, some enrichment alive in your relationship. And you can do that by sharing activities, coming up with hobbies. You have to be able to update your information. We're all about each other.
Right.
We're all changing. I mean, the two choices are change or die. You're always growing and changing and evolving. And somehow staying in contact with one another in a loving, positive way to update so I can see you with new eyes.
Right.
Am I able to see you with new eyes?
So it's also about, as an individual, you should be learning new things.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
Or every other day. Well,
yes.
Because when you learn new things, you will evolve, you will change,
Yes.
and that makes you not the same.
Exactly. And interesting. Your brain pays attention to something that's different or novel. Our brain is programmed to pay attention to new things in order for us to determine whether it's friend or foe. And so novelty gets our attention. That's why the new shirt looks better than the old shirt, even though you may have, the old shirt might fit you better. But novelty wakes up your brain. And you can't just always be reinventing yourself, but you can come up with new activities. If it's just a new way to hug or a new way to smile at your partner, or it could be flirting with your partner when you haven't done that for a long time. If you want your partner to get curious, start smiling, giving that smile that you used to smile years and years ago when you first met. So this curiosity, this novelty is a form of connection, and it doesn't have to be in talking. Because talking can make matters worse, not better in relationships. That's what research shows. So talking isn't a panacea.
Right. And women love talking, so maybe we should shut up every once in a while.
Well, you're making a very good point. If you look at a functional MRI and looking at the brain activity of a woman when she's talking, the pleasure and reward center is lit up.
Right.
Women women use talking as a way to connect. So women talk to connect. But men have to connect to talk. And this is the difference. When a man's connected, feels safe, when he's connected, he'll talk just as much as a woman. In fact, the research that used to indicate that women talk more than men is actually erroneous. It's wrong.
Right.
Men talk just as much as women when they feel connected.
Right.
But you have to connect first. And connecting with a man is somewhat different than connecting with a woman.
All right, let's talk about that coming up. How different is it connecting with a man and connecting with a woman? It's Dr. Pat Love in the studio. Stay tuned. Yes, in the studio, we've got Dr. Pat Love. She's a certified love educator. She's appeared in numerous times on Oprah, Today Show, and CNN. Before we get back to the topic, I'm curious, how is Oprah? I mean, what is she like in person?
That's the second most important question people ask me.
Other than is your name?
Right. And exact. The first question, is that your name?
Is that real name?
Real name.
Right.
And second is, what's Oprah really like? With all my experience with her, and she's everything you would hope she would be. I have to say that I've never been disappointed in her, in the interactions, or even the people, whether it's the chauffeur or the makeup artist, anyone that has associations with her. One of my best friends and her husband designed her mountain house, and they say the same thing about her. And
That's
she's
true.
generous.
Because you never hear stuff like
she's
bad
a real
stuff in
deal.
tabloids
I think
about
she's
that.
the real deal because she's under a microscope.
Were you nervous when you first met her? I mean, she is Oprah.
I was
after all.
so excited. I was so excited. I was just bouncing off the walls.
Wow.
Yeah, several of my good friends went with me, and it was just, it was a highlight.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in front of someone who has actually spoken to Oprah and been on her show. Wow. So anyway, let's get back to the topic we were talking about earlier on about, you were saying that women talk to connect.
Yes.
But men talk only when they connect.
Yes.
When they feel a connection to
When
you.
they feel connected, then they'll talk just as much as a woman.
Right.
And so it's really important to learn that connecting to a man is slightly different than connecting to a woman.
Right.
So, because of our roles for centuries over time, the female brain is designed for communicating, for reading subtle emotions. One study showed that if a woman looks at a face and showing emotion, she gets the emotions right, the subtle emotions like guilt or shame or revenge, whatever. She gets it right 90% of the time.
Right. That's why they say the woman's intuition is usually correct.
Yes. Men get it right 40% of the time. It's not the specialty of their brain unless the emotion is anger or aggression. He gets it immediately.
Okay.
So if the man in your life, if a colleague, if a brother, if father, if they say watch out, you watch out. Because a man is very intuitive around fear, around harm and aggression and something that in which you need to protect yourself. So it's important to know how men and women are different in order to love a man and love a woman. And to connect to a man, touching is very good. Most men will tell you they're touch deprived. They won't say that because it's embarrassing, because men have been relied on to provide and protect us for eons.
The male ego.
Yeah, right. When they can't do that, they feel shame.
Right.
And when a man feels shame, he pulls away. Shame is a stop and hide emotion. And the quiet man, the man who looks like he's stonewalling or unavailable or uninterested, is often the man that feels like he's inadequate. He can't please you. He can't do a good job. And when a man feels inadequate, he's going to move away. So if you will understand that men are hypersensitive to feeling embarrassed or weak or ashamed, and if you will be careful to honor that vulnerability, you can improve any relationship with a man without talking about it.
Right.
Then on the other hand, if men will understand that for eons, women have felt safe and created safety and survived by staying in groups and forming friendships and forming alliances.
Right. When we go to the toilet, we
do
need to
it
go
together.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the reason for that, it doesn't mean that women can't use fight or flight. They can't run fast. They can't fight. It doesn't mean we're weak. It means that if you're in charge of children, a baby and a couple toddlers, running and fighting isn't the smartest survival strategy. So for centuries, women have learned to collaborate and cooperate and talk and communicate. And I watch out for you and you watch out for me. And the female brain is designed to do many things at once. We're very good at multitasking.
Absolutely.
So if I start talking to you, Yasmin, if you're working at the computer and I come up and start talking to you, I'm really not interrupting you because you can keep typing, you can keep working and answer me.
That's true.
The male brain, it's almost like he has these separate boxes in his brain. And when he's working, he's working. When he's talking, he's talking. But to do both at the same time, he can do it. It's just not as easy as it is for a woman because that's not the way his brain is designed. He's designed to hyper-focus, do the long, difficult tasks that take a lot of concentration.
Right.
And it doesn't mean women can't concentrate. It means that we have to work at it harder because the least little change in the environment gets our attention.
Right.
Because that's how we survive.
Yeah.
So it's honoring the differences between men and women, and that's how you'll learn to connect, and you'll never have to talk about it until you feel connected, and then you'll both connect and talk and solve problems.
Right. Instead of saying, why can't you be like me?
Yes. Yes.
You got to understand that men and women just
men
different.
and women are different. Yeah. 99% of our DNA is just exactly right, but that 1% makes a big difference.
And in understanding, you can sort of put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yes.
And you can work things out.
Yes. I say that men understand women better than women understand men.
Really?
Now, I'll tell you why I say that. It's because long ago, men gave up ever understanding a woman. But women still think they understand men.
Right.
And the truth is, they do to a point, but men are different. and you have to honor the difference,
Right.
and then you'll be able to connect.
And just accept it. They're different.
Accept it, yes, and honor it, yes.
All right. Dr. Pat Love coming up, more on love and relationships. Stay here
tuned.
with us. She's a certified love educator. Hello, Dr. Love.
Hello.
You are really the real
It's
deal,
a Dr.
Love.
I know, it's my real name.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's not a
Yep.
moniker. It's not
Nope.
something you gave yourself.
Nope.
I love that.
Nope.
So you're telling us early on, just in case for those who just tuned in, how do you sort of improve a relationship is by understanding that men and women are just different.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the challenges for men in relationships? Because by knowing that, then you can possibly react better to it.
You know, men have been relied upon to solve our problems and to provide and protect for us. And so over the years, that one of the ways they show love is to problem solve.
Right.
And women often get very frustrated with men because they just want someone to listen. They just
Absolutely,
want to talk it
yes.
out. And they find it almost demeaning for him to say, well, what you need to do is. But on the other hand, you have to realize that's the way he shows love.
But wait a minute, is this because of over years, society has made it so, or is
Yes.
it ingrained in him?
Well, it's both, actually. But you have to realize that men have been relied upon in many ways to this providing and protecting. They didn't volunteer for it. It's been for centuries now, and their whole body and psyche has evolved. You know, if you look at the male body, it's different than a woman's body, and not just the obvious. His bones are larger. He's got larger muscle groups. He's got larger blood vessels going to the muscle groups. He's ready for fight or flight. He's ready for action. His brain works different. You know, men still do the more dangerous jobs, the more arduous jobs.
That's true, yeah.
Jobs that require focus. And not that women can't do it.
They're
It's
just better
that
at it.
They're just better at it. It's a natural tendency. And a woman can learn to do it and be very, very good at it, but it's not her natural inclination.
Right.
And so, you know, we say, well, all he wants to do is fix it and be a problem solver, and he's not sensitive. Women have chosen men. Remember, for a man to pass on his genes, a woman has to choose him, you know, has to
That's true,
somehow
yeah.
to be cooperative in that without, without coercion. But in the way he was chosen was by his power and by his status
Right.
and by this ability. So the very thing we criticize him for, we've actually selected him for.
So we gave him that task,
Yes.
and then we sort
And
of
now
bitch
we get
about
a-
it.
Exactly, exactly. But what you can do about it, because women will say to me, well, does this mean I can never complain and can never talk to him? Of course not. But first you have to connect. And one of the ways to connect, is, as I mentioned, is to touch him. Get his attention. Another way to connect is to respect his routine. You know, men like routine because they're prone to hyperarousal. They don't, if they want their keys in one place, if a man has set up an apartment, you go back 7 years, it'll be the same way. Men like routine. It prevents them from being flooded with cortisol. So if you respect his routine, and if you ask a woman, you know, remember, if I start talking to you, it's not necessarily interrupting you because women multitask.
Yes.
They're very good at it. Their brains are designed for it. They're very efficient at it. But with a man, because he's very good at hyper-focusing, if he's at the computer and you go talk to him, he's either got to quit what he's doing, totally lose his concentration, and have to go back and regroup, or he can get you to wait and ignore you until
Right.
he finishes that task, then give you his full attention. This is why when you say to a man, honey, would you watch the kids? And he says, well, I've got these bills to pay and I've got the car to do, and you think, well, so do I. But when you say to a
Right,
man,
yeah.
watch the kids, he thinks, watch the kids. Because
That's it. That's the only thing you're supposed
men
to do.
tend to do one thing at a time. This is why research shows that men play with kids more than women do, because they figure, if I'm going to watch them, I might as well play with them, you know, because I'm going to be watching them anyway. But women, on the other hand, tend to multitask and do lots of things.
We'll watch the kid, we'll bake
Yes.
something, clean
Yes.
the
You've
room.
got the dryer going or the washer going or the dishwasher, whatever. We do a lot of things at one time. Now, because of this, one of the challenges for men is to understand that he needs to explain this. You know, I'll be with you in a moment, or just to give a signal,
Right.
or to know that he can come back and pay attention to his work, that he can make the shift, and he can learn to multitask. You know, men who are single parents wake up in the night with the kids. They do everything just like a woman would when she's a single parent or in a two-parent family. So it's not that men can't learn this, but the challenge for them is to learn that problem solving is fine, but it may be listening, because listening is helping. So that's one of the challenges for men.
All right, we'll talk more about that in just a bit. Keep it right here. Dr. Pet's in the studio. In the studio, I've got certified love educator Dr. Pat Love in the studio, and we've been talking about relationships, and we've been talking about men and some of the challenges for men in relationships. And Dr. Pat, you were saying earlier on that men...
They like to problem solve.
Right.
And while that's a good thing, and women appreciate that, oftentimes the woman doesn't want you to solve the problem. She wants you to listen.
Right, but isn't that...
Listening is helping. It goes against his grain.
Yes.
Because this sort of bleeds into one of the challenges for women. But first of all, men like pleasing women.
Which is a good thing.
It's a good thing. In fact, I think men like pleasing women more than women like pleasing men. Here's why I say that.
Okay.
Because from day one, women please a lot of people. That's our role.
Okay.
But if you look at research, the man considers his wife, his girlfriend, the partner, his best friend. She is at the top of his list. A woman wants the man in her life to be like her female best friend. Women expect men to be like women. It's like, what's a man to do? And so he has to understand that in many ways, fixing it is not always what she wants and needs, that listening to her is a gift, and that's a challenge for him.
Okay.
Oftentimes listening is very uncomfortable for a man because when she's talking, a lot of it is complaining. See, women hear complaints as an invitation to move closer. This is the difference between women and men. If you're my friend, Yasmin, and I call you and I say, been a terrible day. You say,
right.
Honey,
and
come
you
over.
connect.
Yes, and you connect. And you sort of feel special because I called you instead of one of my other
Absolutely,
girlfriends,
yeah.
So women connect around complaints.
We're so negative.
I know, but it draws us closer. We want to help. We want to listen,
Right.
But if I call the man in my life and I call my husband and say, I'm having a terrible day, he feels like he's failed me. He feels like, oh my gosh, what can I do?
I've heard those words so many times.
What can I do? So he wants to hurry up and fix it so you'll feel better and he'll feel better. Because men love to please the woman in their lives. And women, if you understand, and this is a big challenge, we can talk more about challenges for women, but if you understand that your unhappiness makes him feel like a failure, and it doesn't mean you can never complain. Of course not. Behind every criticism is a desire. Behind every blame is a desire. Behind every judgment is a desire. Women, all we have to do is go to the desire. He wants to please you. Would you help me by? It really, really helps when you listen to me, because when you listen to me, it touches me more than anybody else. So ask for what you want in a way he can hear it.
Right.
Because when you criticize, he wants to pull away because he feels like a failure, and the shame and embarrassment and inadequacy makes you want to pull away.
Right. So if you want to complain, just let him know that you just want to let off steam and you just want him to hear.
Or go straight to the desire. Instead of saying, you never do da-da-da, say, I love it when you, or I need you to, or it would help me if you would just, put the clothes in the laundry to begin with. Thank you for putting the clothes in the laundry.
Very subtle difference. Same message, though.
Same message.
Right.
So say it in a way he can hear it.
Right. Say it in positive way.
Positive ways.
In a negative way, he pulls away and then he feels inept, and that sort of spoils the relationship.
Right. See, every human being responds to criticism the very same way. We defend against it. But the difference lies in the defense of most men is fight and flight. The defense of most women is tend and befriend. That's a different coping strategy. So women don't like criticism. Like if I say to you, I'm upset with you, you want to move in. You want to move in right away. I have your rapt attention.
Right.
If I say that to a man, he wants to fix it or run away.
Right. If you can't fix it, I'm not going to stay around.
Exactly. Why stay around to listen? See, if you look at a functional MRI again, and a woman talking, the pleasure and reward center is lit up. She gets high from it. She loves to talk. It doesn't mean that men don't like it. They don't get high from it.
They get a high from fixing things.
They love to be useful. They love to please you. So that's what to remember.
All right. Coming up, maybe Dr. Love, you can share with us the challenges for women, because we've been talking about the men all this while.
Yes.
So that's coming up next. It's Dr. Love in the studio, and it's not me, okay? It's really Dr. Pat Love in the studio. She's a certified love educator. She's in town for a while, and we managed to get her into the studio. Thank you very much for coming in, Dr. Love.
My pleasure.
So we've been talking about challenges for men in relationships. How about for the women? What are some of the things that we should look out for?
Probably the number one challenge is to understand that men are different than women.
Okay.
You know, for years,
Because we still don't get it.
I don't think we truly get it. In fact, most women in their heart of hearts would say, you know, if he would sort of grow up and mature and get more wise and intelligent, he'd be more like a woman. And even the most feminine man is more like another man than a woman. And there's a reason. See, women, because of our coping strategies, we stayed safe by banding together in groups. And, you know, I would watch your babies, you would watch my babies. I mean, over the centuries, this is how we developed alliances and formed relationships. So that's a big part of tend and befriend as a female coping strategy.
Right.
And so when she doesn't feel close, a woman feels fear.
Right.
Fear makes you want to move in closer, of course.
Right.
And for a man, his primary vulnerability is shame and inadequacy, which makes him want to pull away. Right. Of course, she moves in, he backs up, you know, and this is why the dance goes on between men and women.
Right.
But the challenge for women is to realize that you have a vulnerability to isolation, neglect, deprivation. Men need to understand this.
Okay.
A woman, if you're silent, men, that evokes fear in the woman's heart. See, if a woman's silent, the man thinks, great, no problem.
Yay.
Everything's good.
Right.
But he doesn't realize if he's silent, that makes her feel the threat of deprivation, isolation, and therefore harm. Because if you have little babies and you're in charge of children, a woman alone was prey.
Right.
Because she couldn't run, she couldn't fight because she had the babies in her care. So to be alone is to feel fear.
Right.
And fear, again, makes you, you know, hypervigilant, makes you move in. And, of course, the fastest way to get someone's attention is to complain. And so that's why we complain, because women hear complaints as an invitation to move closer.
Right.
So the challenge for a woman is to understand you have to transform your criticism. You have to transform your complaints into desires. Tell him what you want, and tell him what you want in a lot of different ways. One, you can tell him what you want by appreciation. Two, you can touch him and say thank you.
Right.
You can compliment him. You can also make sure that you don't interrupt his routine. You know, again, if a man's busy and you go and ask him something, he's going to have more difficulty listening or talking or stopping than you are, because we're so good at multitasking.
Right.
So you have to respect his routine. And if you have something important to say, talk to him when you know he's ready to listen.
Right.
And you might say, well, he's never ready to listen. It's really not true. When a man feels connected, he will talk and listen just as much as a woman.
Right.
This is a biological fact.
I've got a question. You
Okay.
know, you're saying that tell the men about your desires as opposed to, well, the natural instinct to complain and to
Yes.
whine, right?
Yes.
But the thing is, what if you tell it in a nice way
Yes.
and he still doesn't do it?
Then you have to ask him this question: what would make you want to give that to me?
Wow. That's a powerful statement.
That's a powerful statement.
Yes.
What would it take for you to want to give this to me? Now, don't ask that unless you're ready for the answer.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
what would make you want to do that?
Right. Because I can imagine a lot of women are very frustrated. You know, I
Yes.
ask you nicely,
Yes.
but you don't do it. So
Exactly.
complaining is a negative thing, but it seems to get more action a lot of times.
It does, because we're you know, babies. We learned it as babies. If you use a negative to get a positive. The problem is, for a man, when you complain, he feels inadequate, which makes him pull away.
And
So-
over a long time, that's
Yes.
not a good thing.
So you've got to make the connection, touch him, compliment him, Be kind to him. Make sure you're being intimate together. So, because intimacy, deep intimacy, being sensual, being sexual with your partner, erases all the past. When you're sexual with your partner, oxytocin is released.
Yes.
Oxytocin is the bonding chemical that
The
makes you
feel-good
feel
hormones.
the feel-good hormones. And also oxytocin is an amnesic, makes you forget the
Oh.
argument, makes you forget the times when he was
Oh.
really disappointed you. So
Right.
that's why after sex you forget he didn't pay the credit card bill, or you forget that she forgot your birthday. So it's important to know that the intimacy has a purpose other than just for creating children, and giving pleasure. It really bonds two people together and makes you feel closer and makes you more forgiving. So you have to pay attention to these intimacy needs, because you can't expect a person to be giving with you ignoring his or her needs. So for women, you have to be sensitive about a man's needs. And it's not just sensual, sexual needs. It also is a need for being affirmed and feeling like he's succeeding and making you happy.
All right. Wow, we're learning a lot today, and we'll learn some more. Dr. Pat Love is here in the studio, and we're going to continue talking about relationships in just a bit. Yes, it's Dr. Pat Love in the studio. She's a certified love educator. She's appeared numerous times on Oprah and Today Show and CNN. She's written lots of books. She's a professor. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and yes, it is her real name, Dr. Pat Love. So maybe you can tell us, how do you choose the right mate? Is there such a thing as the right partner, the right mate?
There are people that are certainly more suited to you than others. We know that. People tend to want three things in relationship. They want chemistry, they want compatibility, they want commitment. They want to be able to trust each other. And everybody will say, well, I want all three. And what do I mean by chemistry? It's the romance, it's the excitement, it's the high you get. It's
Your heart goes tump,
yes,
tump, tump.
Yes, the butterflies in the stomach and feeling very attracted to that person. Of course, we all want that. But only 10% of couples say that that's the most important thing.
Because it
Only
doesn't
10%.
last.
Because it doesn't last. It's a stage. And then after that stage passes, that falling in love stage, then you have to make love happen.
Right.
So 80% of couples say it's compatibility. Compatibility is about being best friends and confidants and two people who can work together and problem solve together, who respect each other, who not only love each other but like to spend time together, and someone who's on your side and someone's in your corner.
Right.
So compatibility is really important. Do you like this person? Not just love them, do you like them? And then commitment means not just committed to being faithful, being monogamous, bringing home your money and sharing wealth, etc., but developing a network system, being a couple, going through life, thinking not just about yourself, but about you and your relationship and your partner's needs as well. It could be family ties. It could be building history together. It could be entertaining and letting other people see you as a couple. That commitment is so, so important.
Right.
In fact, research shows that public display of commitment is a better predictor of happiness than public display of affection. That means, yes, it's nice to hold your hand and give you a hug and a kiss and be affectionate. But if you don't act married when you're alone, when you don't act committed when you're by yourself, if you're off flirting with someone else or sending a message, a flirtatious message to a coworker at work, or emailing an email you wouldn't want your partner to read, that's not a display of commitment.
Right.
That's acting like a single person unless you're with your partner, and then you act like you're committed. So commitment is like a rock bottom issue. That's what makes relationships work. But compatibility is really the key. 80% of couples say we grew apart, and that means we didn't have anything in common and we didn't create commonality. Right. In the beginning, you have all this commonality. You're from Texas? Oh, I saw it on a map. Isn't that a coincidence? You're so high on love drugs in the beginning that you make everything compatible.
Right.
But the truth is, after the high wears off, then you really have to make love happen. That's why falling in love is easy, but staying in love really does take skill and knowledge and know-how, and that's why workshops and reading and seminars are so important. You know, we don't have any problem preparing for our career and going to school and taking classes or going to a trade school for our career. And choosing a mate is every bit as important as choosing a career, because it determines the rest of your life.
Absolutely,
and so don't
yeah.
be afraid to get educated and be informed
Right.
and learn how to make love work.
It's not just about, oh, it's happened and just leave it there.
Yeah, we all know it doesn't work like
Every
that.
day is a choice to
Yes.
stay in love, to
Every
be in
day.
love.
Love is a verb. It has to have legs. To
Right.
love you is not enough. I have to show you,
Right.
and I have to keep working at making love stay alive.
I think that's the main thing that a lot of people sort of
Yes.
forget, because they think, oh, it's there.
It's there.
Why do I need to make it
Yeah,
work? It's
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I told you I loved you when
Yeah.
I met you, and if it ever changes, I'll let you know. It's not enough, especially for women.
All right. Well, coming up, more on love and relationships with Dr. In the studio, we have Dr. Pat Love. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for spending the last 2 hours with us,
Yes.
or so. This is the question I always ask everybody that comes in, well, most people that come in. What is love to you?
I think a working definition, Yasmin, is love is the wish to make someone happy. Because the wish means it has legs. You're going to do something. You're going to make it happen. You know, in the Western culture, our definition of love is more like, what have you done for me lately? Meaning
That's
that
Janet Jackson's song.
Yes. So it's like, if you meet my needs, then I love you. And if you don't meet my needs, I don't love you. But the problem with that is, if you can make me happy, you can make me unhappy. That is not a lasting formula. A lasting formula is love is having the wish, the desire, and the motivation to make someone else happy. Because the only love you really feel is loving, the act of loving. When someone loves you and is sweet and kind and appreciates you, what you feel is your love going back to them.
Right.
So loving is an active experience. So love is the wish to make someone happy, and I think that's a great working definition.
I love that. That's the first time I've heard it, actually. And in your opinion, which is the most important thing to make a relationship work? I mean, to you, if you want to get the message out there to everyone.
Yes. Well, it's an odd word, and it's called parity, Parity, and that means overall, this relationship feels fair to me and fair to you. That means my life gets better on a daily basis by being with you, and your life gets better on a daily basis by being me. If you want to be a great lover to your partner, find out what says I love you to your partner and give it as a gift.
Right.
See, if you give it with strings attached, it won't work.
Okay.
It won't.
So
Research.
you don't give it expecting something in return.
Exactly,
Okay.
because if you do that, research shows if you give in a manipulative way, which is more like bartering or it has strings attached,
Right.
I'm going to give you this, but I'm going to be standing and waiting to see what you give me back. Even when your partner gives back to you, you don't accept it. You suspect it because you know it was coerced. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
So
yes.
you're really sabotaging yourself when you give something to get something back because you know you bartered for it. You know they're giving it to you for suspect reasons.
Right.
So it's really important to know that what you give, you take pleasure in giving it.
Right.
And I take pleasure in making your life better. Now, people say, well, why should I give to her, him, when she doesn't give to me? And I say, you know why? Because you feel better about yourself when you
Right.
do the right thing.
So in a way, you're doing it for yourself as well.
Exactly. Don't let your partner decide what kind of person you're going to be. Don't let them decide that. You get to decide that. Because when all else fails, you have to look back and be accountable for your actions
Right.
and how you feel about yourself. People will always say, you got to love yourself before you love someone else. So you know how you love yourself? Doing the right thing, being true to your values, being a lover, having the wish to make someone happy.
But just, you were saying early on about how you have to make love happen.
Yes.
So you have to keep on learning and reading and going for workshops and seminars. That
Yes.
always works. Maybe you could tell us about some of the books that you've written so that, you know.
Yes, one of my favorite books is called The Truth About Love, and just about many of the things we've talked about today are in that book, The Truth About Love.
Okay.
Another book that the rest of it is in about males and females and gender science is called How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It,
Oh,
Creating Love Beyond Words.
okay. So these two books,
Yes.
go and get them if you want to
Yes.
read more about what Dr. Love has been sharing with us right here in the studio today. But thank you very much for coming
My pleasure. My pleasure.